Hi, my name is Marvin Liao, and I'm a partner at Diaspora Ventures. I've been in tech now for about 22 years, and I've been investing for I think, close to 8 to 9 years. And so, I was asked to speak a little bit about why venture capital. What are the considerations for getting involved with venture capital? And so, what I would say is just why venture capital. It's probably the biggest driver of job growth. So, in the U.S. alone, 20% of new jobs actually come from venture capital funded companies. So that's a pretty significant sort of economic driver at a macro level. I also think personally from a sort of like one-on-one micro level, like I actually think it's one of the most fulfilling things you can actually do, supporting young and usually young and new entrepreneurs from the beginning. And so what is venture capital? Venture capital, we raise money from many LPs, high net worth individuals to basically invest in early stage startups. As I said, startups drive most of the economic growth. But having said that, it's not something that anybody can do and everybody can do, whether you're an angel investor or VC. There's some things to think about when you're actually investing. And so if you're a high net worth individual and you're looking to get involved in venture capital investing in startups, I do think there's two ways you can do this. Number one, you can basically do it yourself, and you have to sort of like learn by making mistakes. And that's okay. That's the normal way that most people learn. Or the other way you can do this is actually by going and investing with professionals, right? Go find VC investors that you know and trust and actually putting money with them and learning through watching them, right? Watching the deals that they bring in, going and actually learning from like learning their theses and adapting the lessons that you have. And truth of the matter is you can actually do both at the same time. And so, if you're looking to do this by yourself, there are some things you can do. Number one, the things you need to think about is you got to do the research, right? And so make sure you think about sort of the stage that you want to play in, think about the sectors. So do you want to invest in fintech companies? Do you want to invest in consumer e-commerce companies? Do you want to invest in real estate companies, real estate tech companies, or healthcare? I think one of the considerations is really understanding where you have an edge, right? An edge of sort of like knowledge, connections, learning. So basically, you can actually get into and identify the best deals. The other thing I think you have to be good at to sort of do early stage startup investing, I think you have to really, really be good at judging people, I think, or sort of like understanding people. Maybe judging is not the right word, but really understanding people, understanding what motivates them, understanding of whether these folks are missionaries versus mercenaries. And so I'll define that. Doing startups is really, really hard. A lot of people quit, right? The reality is that probably something close to, I'm gonna say like success rate. Like, do you see a dropout in general at almost every single stage, like a dramatic dropout of every single stage? And so if you take a look at the average exit from a venture sort of like capital funded company, it's probably somewhere between 9 to 12 years. And so you want a founder who is driven by the mission, right? You want a founder who's willing to scale and grow, in the business. And somebody who's just coming in so that, a founder that's coming in so they can build a business and sell it in 2 years, I'm not sure that's how you're going to get the big exits. And so really, the people understanding piece is quite critical for this area. The other thing I'd also mention is that you need to understand, sort of like have a good sense of sort of the future. And so one of the things I do, I spend a lot of time reading science fiction. I spend a lot of time reading sort of scientific journals, reading technology journals, trying to understand where the technology is going, because this can also help you figure out your view and thesis of actually the future. And so one of the big factors of investing for me is I've developed this picture of what the future looks like. And I'm working backwards, right? And trying to find companies and the right founders that can actually co-create that future. And if you don't have a view on sort of where the future is, I think that makes it harder to sort of like invest. At least that's my opinion. And the other thing that I also think about is, are these like really, really balanced teams, right? Somebody that's actually very, very good, on the business side, as well as somebody that's actually very, very good on the technical side. Both are important. You need someone who actually makes the product. You also want someone who can sell the product. And I would even say maybe a third person, which is sort of the design aspect. And preferably these folks hopefully have some deep understanding of the industry that they're playing in, right? A deep understanding of the competitive landscape. And so if you weigh these, it's, at sort of like a top level, you're looking at great teams, great founders, and market and business model. An early stage is probably 80% looking at sort of like the great team piece, right? And judging and understanding them and their motivations and what they're building and how well they tell their story. And maybe about 20% on sort of the overall sort of like market, the future, then I'll say market size, right? Because, you can have awesome founders, but if the market size is very, very limited, you will not get the venture returns that you actually need. And so I would say those are probably the biggest considerations if you're thinking about it. So that's the do-it-yourself way. The sort of like work with other people way, whether you get together with a group of angels so you can learn from each other, that can be a great way to do this. Or just investing in a VC fund itself and just like looking at the reports, talking to the general partners there and understanding and watching how they do their investments. That can also be a great way to learn. And even now, as an investor, I still do a lot of deals myself, but I also am investor in, I'm also an investor in, I think like now 6, I'm a small limited partner in about 6 VC funds because I'm learning new things all the time. These spaces evolve so quickly and there's so many other great investors out there, I can always learn new things. And I think the same with all of you all, these are 2 great ways to learn the business of actually investing in startups. So investing in venture funds, one of the things that I think is really, really important is understanding their thesis, right? Like what sectors are they investing in? What geographies are they investing in? And I think a big part is really, it's a people business. It's just like exactly how you evaluate a startup founder. You should be doing the same thing of how you evaluate a VC investor, right? Like what's their track record? Like have they done good deals before? Have they either been a successful angel before with good investments? Have they been sort of at a very, very successful VC fund before? Have they run a VC fund before? And last of all, really sort of like, do you even like them, right? I think it's important because you'll be spending time with them. It's the same thing with founders. Like I don't want to invest in a founder I don't like because you have to spend time with these people. If you don't like them, like life is going to be really, really hard. And so I do think it's one of those things. Do you like them? Do you trust them? Do you believe in the thesis? Do they have a good view of the world that they agree on, right? So for example, like I won't invest in a VC fund that is like investing in say like weapons, right? Or investing, well, maybe I've changed my mind recently, but say for example, like smoking or any sort of like alcoholic beverage drink. Like I don't, that's not what I want to see in the world, even though you could make a lot of money doing that. And so do they share a lot of the same investment sort of like values or just values in general of where you see the world going? And like I said, the biggest thing in my opinion is, do you trust them, right? Are they going to be good stewards of your money? Do they know what they're talking about? A big factor I would look at is, do you learn something new every time you talk with them? And that's my factor for when I talk to my founders, it's when I talk to sort of the GPs I invest in, like, am I learning something new, right? Or can I demonstrably find that they are significantly better at this than me? These are the things that I would actually use to sort of like judge, whether you should invest in the VC fund or not. And of course, are they in a geography or region that you care a lot about too? That probably matters as well too. I actually think this is where all the growth is going to be happening, right? If you look at just the changeover or just sort of the economic growth at the macro level, but just the reality is just like I ask anybody, where do you think there's going to be more technology in the world or less technology in the world? And everywhere it's more, right? But particularly in the emerging markets where that can actually leaps, I would say jump frog or jump start beyond sort of like a lot of the developed markets. There's a lot of infrastructure that we have in the US that actually is holding us back. You're seeing a lot of the big innovations actually are coming from the emerging markets, whether it's like in Latin America, the Caucasus region. I spend a lot of time in Ukraine. Like Ukraine, there's incredible technology coming out of Ukraine. Same thing like Africa and Southeast Asia. And this is actually where all the population growth is. So my view is that this is actually where the opportunity is. And as a investor personally as an LP as well too, like I'm actually putting money where my mouth is. We're spending a lot of time on this region. So, and I sit on a bunch of investment committees of different VC funds in the MENA region and Pakistan, and it's really, really exciting developments happening in these areas. So, emerging markets, as I would argue, is sort of where a lot of the future action is going to be at. You want somebody who can act as a bridge, right? Somebody who has really, really strong ties to Silicon Valley, which I think actually really matters because like that's where a lot of the best practices are. That's where a lot of the knowledge and learning, and also a lot of the downstream capital potentially is. But you also want somebody who's actually like spent a lot of time in the region versus just reading a book, right? And investing. You want somebody who has a network out here. You want somebody who has actually spent time out here, and who has experience on the ground and in the region, and you want both. That's really hard to find.